Bikers mess with the wrong woman at the restaurant. It was a quiet afternoon at Rosie's Diner, a roadside restaurant on the outskirts of town. The air smelled of freshly brewed coffee and sizzling burgers, and the place was filled with the usual crowd: truckers taking a break, families enjoying a meal, and the occasional lone traveler passing through. At a booth near the window, a woman named Evelyn sat sipping her coffee, lost in thought. She was dressed in a simple black leather jacket and jeans, her auburn hair tied back in a loose ponytail. To most, she looked like any other traveler stopping for a meal. But beneath her calm demeanor was a past she rarely spoke of, one that had sharpened her into someone not to be underestimated. The door to the diner suddenly swung open with a loud creak, and the atmosphere changed in an instant. A group of 5 bikers sauntered in, their heavy boots thudding against the floor. They wore leather vests with skull emblems, and their leader, a burly man with a thick beard and a scar running across his cheek, grinned as he surveyed the place. Well, looks like we got ourselves a quiet little spot," he said, his voice rough as gravel. His name was Rocco, and he was infamous in the area for stirring up trouble wherever he went. The waitress, a young woman barely in her 20s, hesitated before approaching. "Can I get you something?" she asked nervously. Rocco smirked. "How about a smile first, sweetheart?" He grabbed her wrist, pulling her closer. The other bikers laughed, egging him on. The restaurant fell silent. People averted their gazes, hoping to avoid trouble. But one person didn't look away: Evelyn. She set her coffee cup down gently and stood up, walking toward the group with a slow, deliberate pace. "Let her go," she said, her voice calm but firm. Rocco turned, amusement flashing in his eyes. "Oh, and who do you think you are, lady?" Evelyn met his gaze without flinching. "Someone who doesn't like bullies." The bikers chuckled. One of them, a lanky man with a snake tattoo on his neck, sneered. "You got a death wish, sweetheart?" Evelyn sighed. "No, but you might." Rocco released the waitress and took a step toward Evelyn, towering over her. "You're either real stupid or real crazy," he said. Before he could say another word, Evelyn moved. In the blink of an eye, she grabbed Rocco's wrist and twisted it hard. A loud snap echoed through the diner as he roared in pain, his arm bent at an unnatural angle. Before the others could react, she kicked the snake-tattooed biker in the knee, sending him sprawling onto the floor. One of them lunged at her with a knife, but Evelyn dodged effortlessly, grabbing his arm and flipping him over the counter. Plates shattered as he crashed into the kitchen area. The last 2 hesitated, realizing they were outmatched. "Who the hell are you?" one of them stammered. Evelyn straightened her jacket. "Just someone who learned how to deal with guys like you a long time ago." Rocco groaned, clutching his broken wrist. "You're gonna regret this," he growled. Evelyn leaned in close. "No, you are." The bikers scrambled to their feet, helping their injured leader up. They knew when to cut their losses. With a final glare, they staggered out of the diner, their bravado shattered. The room remained silent for a few moments before the waitress spoke. "That was incredible. Who are you?" Evelyn smiled faintly. "Just passing through." She tossed a few bills on the table, enough to cover her coffee and a generous tip, before heading for the door. As she stepped outside and walked to her motorcycle, she heard the whispers inside. Rumors of a mysterious woman who took down an entire gang without breaking a sweat. She slipped on her helmet and revved up her bike. Some people ran from trouble. Evelyn, she faced it head-on. And as the roar of her engine filled the air, one thing was certain: the wrong bikers had messed with the wrong woman. As Evelyn rode down the highway, the wind whipped against her face, carrying the distant scent of pine and asphalt. She should have left that fight behind, but something gnawed at the back of her mind. Rocco wasn't the type to let things go. She had seen men like him before, proud, ruthless, and too stupid to know when they were beaten. He wouldn't just slink away after being humiliated in front of his crew. No, he'd want payback, and she was ready for it. The ambush 2 hours later, Evelyn pulled into a small motel on the outskirts of the next town. It was the kind of place where people minded their own business, perfect for laying low. She checked in, grabbed a bottle of water from the vending machine, and sat on the edge of the bed, replaying the events at the diner in her mind. Then she heard it. Motorcycles. The deep, guttural growl of engines echoed outside, and headlights bathed her window in an eerie glow. They had found her. Evelyn exhaled slowly, reaching for her leather bag. Inside, she had a few things she always carried: some cash, a switchblade, and an old .45 pistol. She preferred not to use it, but she wasn't stupid. A voice called from outside. "Come on out, lady. We just want to talk." She recognized that voice. "Rocco." Evelyn stood, rolling her shoulders. "Figures," she muttered, grabbing her blade and tucking it into her boot. She stepped outside. 5 bikers stood in the dim light of the parking lot, their faces twisted with anger. Rocco had his arm wrapped in a crude sling, his broken wrist barely stabilized. The others looked ready to tear her apart. "You humiliated me," Rocco said through gritted teeth. "That was a mistake." Evelyn sighed. "You're not the first guy who said that to me." The biggest of them, a bald brute named Jax, cracked his knuckles. "We could do this the easy way, sweetheart. But I hope you choose the hard way." Evelyn smirked. "I was hoping you'd say that." Jax lunged first, but Evelyn was faster. She sidestepped, driving her elbow into his gut before sweeping his legs out from under him. He hit the pavement with a sickening thud. Another biker charged, swinging a tire iron at her head. She ducked, catching his wrist and twisting it until he screamed. The iron clattered to the ground, and she slammed her knee into his stomach, knocking the air out of him. Rocco, despite his injury, pulled out a knife and slashed at her. Evelyn dodged, grabbing his wrist and using his momentum against him. He stumbled forward, and she grabbed the back of his head, slamming it against the motel's brick wall. He crumpled to the ground. The remaining 2 bikers hesitated, their confidence shattered. Evelyn picked up the tire iron and gave them a look that sent a clear message. "Try me." They turned and ran. The warning Rocco groaned, struggling to push himself up. Blood dripped from a cut on his forehead. Evelyn crouched beside him, gripping his broken wrist just enough to make him wince. "Listen carefully," she said, her voice cold. "You come after me again, and I won't go easy next time." Rocco gritted his teeth, but he didn't argue. He knew he had lost. Evelyn stood, tossing the tire iron aside. "Tell your boys to pick smarter fights." With that, she turned and walked back to her motel room. Behind her, the sound of retreating motorcycles faded into the night. Evelyn locked the door behind her and sat on the bed, rubbing her temples. Trouble had a way of finding her, but she had made sure it wouldn't be following her any further. At least, not tonight. She leaned back with a sigh, staring at the ceiling. Some things never changed, and some people never learned. The night air was still as Evelyn sat on the edge of her motel bed, listening. The distant hum of motorcycles had faded, leaving behind only the occasional chirp of crickets and the hum of a flickering neon sign outside. She had dealt with Rocco and his gang for now, but experience had taught her one thing. Men like him rarely stayed down. She exhaled, checking the pistol tucked inside her bag. She didn't like relying on it, but she wasn't about to be caught off guard. Then, just as she expected, it happened. A shadow moved outside her window. A faint scuff of a boot against gravel. She smiled to herself. Idiots. The final confrontation, she moved quickly, slipping out the back door of the motel room. Keeping low, she crept around the building, blending into the darkness. At the front, Rocco stood with 2 of his men, Jax, still nursing his bruises, and a new guy, someone Evelyn hadn't seen before. He was tall, wiry, and held a shotgun like he knew how to use it. Rocco's face was swollen, the cut on his forehead now a dark smear in the dim motel lights. But despite his injuries, there was something new in his expression. Desperation. "This time, we don't play around," he muttered to Jax. "She humiliated us, and we don't leave till she's dealt with." Jax grunted, but the new guy, shotgun, nodded. "Let's burn her out," he said, pulling out a canister of gasoline. Evelyn's stomach tightened. That was a step too far. These weren't just bruised egos anymore. They were out for blood. Fine. She'd end this. One last lesson before Shotgun could pour the gas. Evelyn made her move. She emerged from the darkness like a ghost, silent and swift. The butt of her pistol cracked against Shotgun's temple before he even knew she was there. He crumpled to the ground, the shotgun falling from his hands. Jax turned, swinging wildly, but Evelyn ducked under his punch and drove her knee into his ribs. He gasped, staggering back. Then there was only Rocco. His eyes widened in disbelief. He took a step back, hand fumbling inside his vest. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She grabbed his injured arm and twisted it behind his back, forcing him onto his knees. He screamed, "You just don't learn, do you?" Evelyn whispered, pressing the barrel of her pistol against his temple. "I gave you a warning. And now you're here, trying to burn me out like some scared little boy?" Rocco whimpered, his bravado finally breaking. I was just, shut up." Evelyn's voice was ice. "You don't get to talk." She grabbed the gasoline canister, dumping it over him. Rocco gasped, the cold liquid soaking into his vest. "You like playing with fire?" she asked, pulling out a lighter and flicking it open. The small flame danced in the darkness. Rocco paled. Wait, please," she leaned in. "This is what fear feels like," she murmured. "Remember it." She flicked the lighter shut. Then, with a disgusted sigh, she shoved him to the ground and turned away. "Get in your truck and drive," she ordered. "Don't look back. And if I ever see you again," she let the unspoken threat hang in the air. Jack scrambled to his feet, dragging shotgun up. They didn't argue. They didn't hesitate. Within seconds, they were peeling out of the parking lot, dust and gravel kicking up in their wake. Evelyn watched until their taillights disappeared into the night. She let out a slow breath, tucking her pistol back into her waistband. The fight was over. For good this time. The road calls the next morning, Evelyn checked out of the motel, her bag slung over her shoulder. As she walked to her motorcycle, the motel owner, a grizzled old man, watched her from the office window. "You're trouble, aren't you?" he said. Evelyn smirked. "Only when I have to be." She swung her leg over her bike, started the engine, and took one last look at the road ahead. Some people stayed in one place, letting the past catch up to them. But Evelyn? She kept moving. And God help the next fool who thought she was an easy target. With a twist of the throttle, she roared onto the highway, leaving nothing but dust and silence behind her.